Selina Kyle was born to a mother who was a prostitute and a father whom she never knew. She was abandoned as an infant and left on the doorstep of St. Caldwell's, run by Sister Leslie Tompkins. There she was raised under strict supervision, but she would always watch the children who lived on the street. She envied them of their freedom to run about, going where they pleased and doing what they pleased. Eventually, she began to sneak out of the orphanage at night, exploring the streets surrounding it. She would cover herself in dirt and tear her clothes to blend in with the other street urchins, keeping to the shadows. She maintained this habit until the day she left the orphanage years later. She also discovered the work and campaigns of Susan B. Anthony, becoming a budding suffragist. It was also while she was at St. Caldwell's that she met a young boy, Bruce Wayne. Bruce's parents had recently been murdered, the rich and mighty Waynes. Selina saw Bruce treated differently and she initially resented him because of his recent loss. She had never known her parents, therefore never had the luxury of even knowing them enough to be sad. They weren't around, and that was that. Bruce also didn't live at the orphanage all the time. He had a butler to watch over him some days at the Wayne estate. In spite of her resentment towards the young Wayne, she began to see that he was unlike most of the preconceptions she had of the persnickety, arrogant upper class. He was keen to stand up to bullies and defend others. In spite of this altruism, she saw that he didn't have very many friends. The two began spending time together and realized they had something in common. They enjoyed adventure. Bruce had merely read about such adventures, while Selina had experienced many. She began to take him on her nightly escapades exploring Gotham. Eventually, years later, Bruce reached the age of 17 and decided to set out on his own. He said goodbye to Gotham, St. Caldwell's, and Selina. Selina was angry at him for leaving and angry at herself for being angry. She felt betrayed. Should she have expected any less from an aristocrat? She soon reached the age of 16 in 1880 and left the orphanage, setting out on her own. The young woman eventually came across Haley's Circus, a circus troupe that had traveled to Gotham. There, she met a lion tamer and was entranced by the use of the bullwhip, as well as the showmanship presented by the performers. She joined their band on its travels, seeing the world and eventually becoming a performer herself. She became a part of their dancing performance, learning the basics and becoming one of their best dancers. She also spent time training in the use of the bullwhip with the lion tamer and their troupe. She was going on a grand adventure, though eventually her heart called her home to Gotham in 1889. It was here that she found a job as a dancer at the Monarch Theater, showcasing her immense talent. It was also here that she saw injustice heaped upon her fellow performers. She saw one of the men in charge at the theater abuse his power again and again, groping the women who worked there. So, she tracked him down and broke his hands. The man left the theater and presumably Gotham, and was never seen again. This was a turning point for Selina. She had proved to herself that she was capable of taking matters into her own hands, and that she was a force to be reckoned with. When she returned to her job at Monarch Theater, she quickly became one of the shakers and movers in the business, finding her voice and taking care of her fellow women in the performance industry. She also became involved in a local chapter of suffragists, women who would meet to support one another and share like ideals. It was here that she met Mrs. Barbara Gordon, the wife to the inspector of Gotham's police. The two became fast friends, and Selina found a motherly presence in Mrs. Gordon, though they weren't that far in age. Selina found herself beginning to build her own life. She made a stand to challenge sexist ideologies present in the city council, and she fought to give the voiceless a voice. She had a true passion to help the impoverished in Gotham as well, whom the city tended to ignore so often. The young woman was quite surprised when she heard in 1891 that Bruce Wayne had returned to Gotham. Selina found herself feeling a familiar resentment at the young aristocrat's special treatment. He was praised by the Gotham Gazette as Gotham royalty in regards to his return. His status and gender allowed him to be handed everything on a silver platter. Soon after Bruce's return, the Batman appeared as well. Selina was suspicious almost immediately. The vigilante's presence started off as just rumors, and she tended to ignore those. But then the murders began in 1892. Some attributed them to the Bat. Others thought they resembled the Whitechapel murders perpetrated by Jack the Ripper. Selina didn't know what to think. All she knew was that impoverished women, showgirls, prostitutes, even societally average women, were being murdered, and the police seemed not to give a damn. Seeing the fear and awe inspired by the alleged Batman, Selina realized that it was something that could be utilized by her as well. She would become something more, and she would try to bring Jack the Ripper to justice in her own way.